Ladies and gentlemen, people of all gender expressions, thank you for checking out the North Bank Media Podcast. I am your host, Patrick Strevens. Joining me on the show this evening was my friend and colleague, Andrea Riera. Was really pleased to have her on the show. She's got a hell of a story, and she really shared a lot of deeply personal and moving information from her life. And also, it's great to see her now today doing much better than she was in the past. And even there were times when I knew her, when I didn't even know the struggles that she was going through. I would say if you're not into hearing stories of self-harm, mental health issues, physical, verbal, emotional violence and abuse and trauma, this might not be your cup of tea at the moment. But I would also say if you yourself are struggling, or someone that is, this podcast might in some ways be inspirational, because the takeaway here is when you're in the darkness and when things don't seem to be going so well, really the only thing to do is to keep going. Even if that seems impossible, it's really the only way forward. So I guess a bit of a trigger warning that there is some pretty dark and emotional moments in this podcast. Well, dark emotional subject matter. What was remarkable was how she talked about it so clearly and lucidly, and it's great to see her in a better place now. And I had a lot of fun with this one. It's a long one, definitely one worth sticking around for. I should say, check her out on Instagram. There's a page called Girls with Feels. It's a place for women, girls who've had emotional problems or breakdowns, whatever, breakups, to go and to connect with people and to rant. And Andrea's right there to listen and to offer you some feedback and, maybe give you some solutions or even just give you space to talk. So that's Girls with Feels on Instagram. Without too much more blabbery on my part, please enjoy a really great conversation with my friend and colleague, Andrea Riera. I'll have to ask her. I really hope she comes on.
Please get back to me on this. I'll listen to that.
Okay, for sure. Well, Andrea, thanks for making time to do this. It's been good to hang. We hung out all day. We were shooting all day.
No, this is exciting. Thank you for having me, and I'm excited to just talk to you after a while.
Yeah, no kidding. It's been a while. So when we were trying to figure that out, when did you start at Mr. Social? So many people I met through Mr. Social. That's been one of the best parts of that whole thing for me.
Yeah, for sure. Great people. Like I think I started in the first time at the end of 2018.
Late 2018? Long ago?
That long ago.
Wow.
I know I was on and off, like I said, for a while, but overall I was there in at 2018 until 2020.
Okay, right. And you came in because you had a background in video editing.
Yes. Yeah, crazy, right?
That wasn't what you ended up doing.
I got hired as a video editor at the start, part-time, and then it was a month as a video editor, and then all of a sudden they needed a project manager.
Right.
And they needed someone to step up and kind of give it a try and help and be a team player. So I said, I don't have any experience with this, but however, I like people, I can do it, and if you need that, I will just go and help. So I learned a lot. Right. To be honest, I was scared at first, but I got to meet so many people, like clients, and being that part of the creative process. It was awesome. It was a learning experience for sure, but now that I see it, I'm glad I did it. Right.
So it's funny that we connected again, because now you're doing more like content creation for somebody, for small business. It seems like you're always going back to that.
Somehow, Patrick, I go back to that. And that's the thing, the thing that I'm passionate about is storytelling.
Okay. Right.
I think everybody has a voice, and we all have stories. And being able, of course, in a visual way, it's for someone that's passionate about what they do in their business, and then they don't really know how to explode their potential, and they're like, okay, I need a video but I don't know, like I know what my business is, but I don't know how to express that or translate that.
Right.
And kind of helping that and saying like, okay, let's capture this idea. And then honestly, I just love seeing their reaction, watching a video. It's like, that's exactly what I want. That is what I'm passionate about. So just helping people tell their story in a creative way is what at the end I look back and I'm like, okay, I'm happy. I'm happy if they're happy. So
Interesting. Was it like that from a young age? You were like to tell stories, like to, what is that like? Because I'm the same way, I guess, with storytelling. That's what I do. And like when I was a kid, I was always like doing imitations, doing impressions, or like we'd be playing hockey, and
Really?
I would be running around doing like the play-by-play. You know, like
no way.
So it's like there's something in me that wants to tell stories, or I don't know, express to people. Do you know? Do you have a sense of what that is?
I get it. Yeah. And I think it started at a young age. So I come from Venezuela in South America. So back in the day, well, my stepdad is Irish. So he moved to Venezuela when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
My mom met him. They used to go to the same church. So he went to Venezuela from Ireland to build an orphanage and a rehab center. So he was apparently just going to stay there for 5 years, but because he was going to the same church that we were going to, he met my mom, fell in love, and he ended up staying there. So they got married by the time I was 12. And since then, so my house was kind of like an Airbnb. So my house was my house, and like at the front and the back, we had 7 rooms.
Wow.
So we had people like every 3 months coming from all over the place, Australia, Canada, the States, Ireland, to come help us out with the orphanage and the rehab center. So we helped over 50 kids in over, I'm pretty sure, over 70 families.
Wow. And how old were you when this was going on?
About 12 years old.
Okay.
So I started learning English when I was 8 at school. And then once my stepdad was in the picture, he's like, okay, I need a translator. So my mom was like, okay, Andrea, I think you're going to be the one. So I did a lot of like online schooling and learning English. So I had a teacher come to my house 4 times a week, 2 hours every day, just to learn English.
Wow.
And then my stepdad didn't really know how to speak Spanish. So at home, we spoke English.
Interesting.
So I kind of was a translator between my mom and him at first because my mom didn't really know how to speak English. So their first date was, they actually had a third person. They went out for dinner and my mom, they had a translator. And that was their first date.
Wow.
So
That's
since
crazy.
then, so around 14 years old, I started to work as a translator.
Right.
And I was connected to these families. So to me, I always thought these, they had nothing. Like poor people, you go there and the kids are not, like they don't have an iPad on their hands or like an iPhone.
Right.
Like the kids see you and they just want you to be there and they're excited because you're there. And they all just want to do is spend time with you. And I just like built a relationship with so many families and I'm like, how can you be so happy but like technically nothing?
You own nothing.
You know, in the material world, you have nothing.
Right.
And then there's me that I have an okay life. I have everything I need, and sometimes I'm just miserable and I kind of hate life. But to me, every time they had such a positive outlook.
Right.
And that was kind of my thing. I was like, these people have a story. And like I remember going to my mom. It's like, okay, we're helping them, but the world needs to know about them. You know. And then my stepdad got me my first camera at the age of 13.
Okay.
And my videos were very long. They were like 2 hours long,
Boy.
no editing.
I like it.
And I didn't even ask questions. I was like, just with my camera, I'm like, okay, tell me your story. And then went on and on.
Right.
So it kind of started like that. And as I grew up, I started watching movies. And like the thing is, like every time I went to the theater, I'm one of those people that I go, whether I hate or love the movie, it affects me. Like I keep thinking about the movie. And I kind of, I go along and I'm like, okay, the story, and I keep thinking about it. So I don't know, I think visually, I was always attracted to storytelling in a visual way, plus the connection that I had to those people that kind of came along, and I was like, okay, this is maybe what I have to do. And I went for it.
You felt it was your calling.
Yep.
It was like you knew it deep inside. That's cool.
Deep inside, yeah, and then 20, now I'm 26.
I'm still
doing the same thing.
Yeah. That's interesting you mentioned those. So those people that came to the was it an orphanage you said, or a rehab?
Orphanage and a rehab center.
In the same building?
No, different building,
Okay.
same city.
But so and this was in Venezuela?
Yep.
And these people that came there were Venezuelan, or they were from?
No, they were like North Americans, Europeans. So they just came. I guess my stepdad, through my stepdad and his work. So they will just come, usually teams of 10 to 15 people, and they were around the ages of 18 all the way to 25 or 30 years old.
Okay. That's interesting, though. You say they had nothing, and they were obviously in a bad place in their life, and yet they had some kind of happiness?
Yeah, they were content. I think it was like they knew what to appreciate what they had, and they knew how to appreciate people. And I think that was one of the things that stood up to me, because even back then I had my phone and social media was a thing. Instagram was out there.
Right.
And that was how I was interacting. But those people, they're like, they don't have phones. They don't have that. And it's kind of like, it reminded me, it's like, whoa, that's actually life. I used to be like that. I used to go as a kid and play outside, but not an iPad, but actually playing sports, So it was kind of like, I just kind of lost track of like what's important to me and how much I had. I have more than I need, but sometimes we just forget that.
I guess that's it. We do have more than we need. We're being drawn away from what's important, like, and social media, it has been good in a lot of ways, but it's also, hasn't it? It's like it showed us too much. It's like I know too much now, and it's hard for me to focus on what's really important, or it can be. Whereas if you had nothing, at least you'd know what was important.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. No. It's crazy. I mean, I value social media, especially like I'm away from my family, and that's a way to keep in touch with them, and that's also a very great way to tell stories as well. But there's good and bad, like everything, pros and cons. It depends what your intentions are and how you use it and what you're looking for.
That's the key, right? Is don't let it use you. Like,
exactly.
If you're seeing stuff on social, if you see stuff on social media that makes you mad, it's your fault.
Yeah,
it's your
you don't
fault.
have to look at it.
You don't have to.
Just don't look for it. Yeah.
Don't look. Yeah. And we were talking earlier with those people that you're working for, Marcel. Is that her name?
Marcel and Allie.
Marcel and Allie, and Marcel was talking about Clubhouse now, and how like you could pretty easily get connected with somebody very high up in business or in whatever industry thanks to social media. Like, it's breaking down the walls of communication.
Yeah,
in a way.
And I think it's great, and I'm interested to like just be a part of that as well. Like, again, it's storytelling.
It's
of course,
always,
they're always like, it's always a different, you can learn, but they're still like, your experience is different. So you can compare, you can learn, but when you get to the point of comparing yourself, that's when I think it's not good.
That's the key.
Yeah, exactly. You can take away, but realize that your story is different. You have different strengths, and your story is going to be absolutely completely different. It may take you longer. It may be faster. But as long as you keep it like, okay, I'm just going to take this and learn, but not just like, if I'm not like that, I'm not successful, then you gotta rethink.
You gotta chill
where you're
on
going.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a couple things I've been working on is like, it's like, that's the thing, is like, just because somebody has what you don't have, or there's someone's living a better life than you, it's not actually preventing you from living it. It's not like there's a finite amount of opportunity or happiness in the world. Like, you can make your own, and I see somebody happy, that should motivate me to be happy.
Exactly.
It shouldn't make me feel like, shit, now I can't be happy.
Right?
know? And the other thing too, like we were saying, everybody has a story, and it's important to tell your story, but it's also important to just accept it for, that's your story. It's really got nothing to do with mine.
Exactly. Honestly, and that translates to so many things. Like, even me talking more a bit, like getting into my personal life, I thought I was going to be married, or at least with someone, by the time I was 25.
Yeah.
And I, like, literally last year, 5 of my best friends got engaged or married or are having kids. So it would be easy. Like, I mean, I'm very happy for them. Right. But in the other side, it's like, oh, that's kind of what I wanted as well. And it's not happening to me. What's wrong with me? You can fall into that.
You can.
But it's like, no. And sometimes it takes, like, you have to train yourself and not go there. Like, you have, like, okay, no, I'm actually happy for them. And I actually have a lot of things going on in my life.
Good.
So, like, I'm here where I'm at doing whatever I love is because I've been single and I've had the time. And I should be thankful for that. But like I said, you have options all the time. It's like, you can go and cry about yourself and compare yourself, or you can be like, I'm thankful for what I have, and one day that's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, then I can still be happy. It may
Absolutely.
be different, but I can still be happy. But yeah, it takes time, and sometimes it's not easy, you know. Sometimes you have bad days and you feel kind of lonely, and other days you're motivated. But it's just keeping
it
things
going.
clear. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, because I was sitting in here yesterday with my friend Roberto, who I think you should meet Roberto just because he's a very interesting guy.
Yes.
I think everybody should meet Roberto. But and I ended up giving that episode the title "The Pursuit of Happiness" because he talked a lot about becoming happy, and I said Roberto, like, is happiness the number one goal for you? Is that the pursuit? And basically he said yes.
Okay.
So I'd like to pitch that to you. Is happiness the end, or is there something more, or maybe how do we even understand what happiness is? You know, like, is that what we're after here, or is there more to life than being happy?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, of course, like, I think being happy is a great feeling, but it's a feeling. To me, when I look back at my life, I'm proud of what I've had to go through.
Right.
And how I had to go through it and what got me there to that point. I've gone through several very hard situations in my life, and looking back, to be honest, when I think about myself and what motivates me to keep going, it's not my happy moments. It's the moments where I was like, I'm not gonna get out of this.
Nice.
I'm not going to get out of this. And then you look a year, it's like, oh, it's been a year and I'm still going. Maybe I'm not 100%
Right.
over it. I'm still healing, but
Sure.
I've overcome. I didn't think I was gonna get through it, and slowly I'm getting better. So to me, when I look back, it's what have I learned? And again, I love helping people. And when I go, it's okay, how I want to be a better person every day. And I think when you're happy with who you are, it's not about happiness to me, it's about accepting who you are.
Right on.
It's okay, I know I'm not perfect, but my intentions are in the right place, and I'm trying my best to be the best version of myself. And that, I think that's when I wake up and I'm okay, today I'm going to be better than yesterday.
Right on.
And that's what encourages me. And every time I think about it, it's finding purpose in life. Because if I just want to feel happy, it's no, what can I do? I'm in this world for what reason, really? And to me, that can be a lot of things.
Good
There's
question.
an Andrea, and I'm a daughter, I'm a friend,
Right.
I'm also an employee. But it's I want to be the best version of myself in every single area of my life, and I know that it takes time.
Right.
But to me, I mean, that's life, you know.
Right on.
So yeah.
That's the right way to look at it. I love that a lot. It's it's more about growth. It's not to me, and Roberto said it too, he's happiness is a state of mind. Happiness is a present state.
Yeah.
But for me, I'd rather just be in a constant state of going up, I guess, growth. Maybe at least I'm always pursuing happiness, but I don't know if I'm ever really happy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how old were you? I'm going to ask you this question and you're going to answer, and as you're answering, I'm going to come over and just tweak that microphone a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
But,
can I do anything?
Well, you could probably do it. Yeah, just
What?
pull it closer to your
Closer?
mouth. Yeah. Just because that fan kicked on now. And
Okay, is that better?
yeah.
Okay. My laugh is kind of loud sometimes.
Well, I'm ready on the volume knob here because if you want to get wild.
Okay, sounds good.
I was going to ask you, how old were you when you came over to Canada from Venezuela?
Yeah, I was 18 years old, actually.
wow.
I celebrated my 18th birthday in Venezuela, and the theme was literally Canada.
Wow.
I knew I was going to come here,
Oh,
and
I
it was
see,
a
I
big
see.
thing.
Nice.
So all my friends, it was kind of going away party, and also it's oh, let's celebrating. We didn't know what was going to happen here. When I came, I was 18, but I came just for 3 months. Apparently, it was going to be 3 months. Because I had friends. So like I said, we had people coming to my house and helping us with the orphanage and all that.
Right.
So I met friends from Edmonton, actually.
Oh, cool.
I made friends, and I was okay, I want to go somewhere else and help people somewhere else, not in Venezuela. I want to expand. And that was kind of my 18th birthday gift from my mom and my stepdad, a ticket to come here for 3 months. And I was going to volunteer
Okay.
at a church to teach Spanish to kids.
Okay.
And kind of hang out with my friends.
Right on.
And then going back, and I was going to go back to Venezuela and start university. But that never happened.
You never went back?
I never went back.
Wow, so you're like a refugee.
Yeah, pretty much, honestly.
So you got a 3-month visa?
So I came here with a visitor's visa.
Okay.
And you're allowed to stay here as a visitor for 6 months.
Okay.
So in those, the first month, I was kind of hanging out with my friends, and a lot of people was okay, Andrea, what do you want to do? You're going back. What are you going to study? And I'm like, something with like videography, photography, video editing. I didn't really know. And they were like, is that a thing in Venezuela? Like filmmaking? And I'm like, it's not really a thing. It's more like broadcasting and like news.
Sure.
So I was like, I guess I'll do that. And they were like, honestly, there is such a great program at NATE here. And I'm like, okay. So it's like, you should just like apply and see. And I literally applied without telling my mom or my stepdad, because I was like, what are the chances? I'm not going to get into a college here. So I did it. I applied without telling my mom. And a month after, I got a call, and I was in the program.
At NATE?
At NATE, at the television broadcasting
RTA
program.
or radio? Yeah.
Radio and television. So I called my mom, and I'm like, hey, so I applied to go to college here. And she was like, okay. She's like, okay, give me like a few days to think about it. And they talked, and I was like, okay, Andrea, if that's what you want to do, we'll support you, which was huge. I never thought it was going to happen, really. So I went back home just to get my student visa.
Okay.
So I went back to Venezuela for 2 months. That was my kind of going away. Like, people knew that I was at least going to be here for 2 years.
Right.
So that was very scary. Like, I came here as an 18-year-old. Like, you're a kid. Like, I didn't really do much. But talking more about my personal life, there was like, my mom's marriage with my stepdad wasn't the greatest. It was very toxic.
Sure.
There was verbal and physical abuse.
And a language barrier, apparently.
Yeah, a lot, actually. So after, it was really bad. So my mom and I talked, and she knew I was kind of wanting to get away from that situation.
Sure.
I mean, it was her marriage, and she picked him to be with him, and she loved him. But me, I didn't have a choice. So I was in a toxic situation, not, because I was, her daughter. So after being in that, toxic environment for over 10 years, I was like, Mom, I love you, but I don't know if I can still be here. And I do want to study, television broadcasting, and I think it's a great opportunity. So she's like, I know Andrea, and I think you deserve a better life.
Wow.
So I'm here to support you. So I kind of was running away from that, but I was also
running to something.
And I was excited, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make the sacrifice of being away from my entire family.
Right.
Then I'm gonna make this work. And going through NATE, I was the only international student.
Really? In the program?
In the program.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably lots of, well, anyway, yeah.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. It was scary. I thought I was gonna quit like my first week.
And why was that? Just was it hard to?
Why was that? Just because it was scary not having someone that and my English was very good, but there was a lot of like public speaking in front of the class. Like, there's a bit of acting, and sometimes you had to read something and yell and laugh at the same time. And I'm the only one with an accent there, and that's not. I am okay with one-on-one conversations, but other than that, you're not going to see me life of the party, like grabbing a mic and being the center of attention. I run.
No karaoke? No karaoke?
No karaoke for me. I'm really sorry. But yeah, so it was very overwhelming. And again, that insecurity of like just being 18 and everything is a new culture. The weather, too. We don't have snow in Venezuela.
I'm sorry.
So I thought I was going to die.
Was that hard? I can imagine that, because you're coming to like, it's hell here some days.
Yep.
A few days a year, it's hell.
Yeah. And I honestly, like, it was like very, not only because of the cold, but honestly, like the daylight, like how dark it got. So I was at NATE, I was at school, it was dark. I used to get there at 7 a.m.
Dark.
And then
go home at 4.
Go home around like 5:30 or 5, and it was dark again. So it was very depressing. I wasn't used to it. I was like warm weather, like, the ocean, right?
Sure.
Like 25-minute drive, surfing and everything, and then coming
sun tanning, getting that good stuff.
Every time I Skyped my family, they were like, Andrea, are you sick?
Yeah.
Are you okay? You look bad. I'm like, no, I'm fairly tan for Canadians.
Yeah,
my family's like, no, there's something going on.
Wow. I remember hearing that there were these guys that moved to Alberta from Texas, and even they noticed how it was, what was it? How long the sunset was. Like, I guess closer to the equator, the sun just goes down.
Yeah.
Right? Did that come to mind ever? It's like this slow descent into darkness.
Yeah, which it was like awesome, because at NATE I used to get a lot of like time lapse of the like sunrise and sunset.
Sure.
for school, and I appreciated that. But yeah, in Venezuela, it's like literally 1 minute, like
Just done.
in and out. Yeah, done. But it's always warm, and yeah, it's like light out until like 6:30, 7 p.m.
Right on.
all year long. So.
I'm gonna have to go down there someday. Well, actually, it's in pretty rough shape right now, isn't it, Venezuela?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
civil war.
Do not go there.
Yeah,
It's
basically,
Civil
right?
War. It's crazy. I still have a few family members there, and I mean, the economy, everything is just like, yeah.
It's in the
going down.
tank, right?
Yeah, most of honestly, 65% of my friends have gone
They've all-
somewhere else. They're not. Yeah, they're gone. They didn't have an option,
Wow.
right? So it's very sad because it's still home for me, and I think Venezuela is a beautiful country. It was very rich,
Oil rich, right?
Yeah, I'm half Italian. Most of my friends are Italians because a lot of people tourists it was the place to go, oil industry, and it was just a rich country. The weather was very nice.
Right.
And I remember those days until things started changing by the time I was probably 13, 14.
Okay.
And the economy and dictatorship and the government and
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, so it is a dictatorship, right? And it's
100%.
I don't know the politics behind it, but is he like a total or is he like socialist,
Yeah.
like he's a communist,
100%
or
communist.
is what he says, is what he
It's what he says.
markets
but
himself as.
Yeah, if you hear about it. So for a regular Venezuelan with a decent job,
Mm-hmm.
it takes a year for them to make $1,000.
Wow.
But the prices to buy food and everything are
Right.
the same as here. So, I mean, I'm thankful that I'm here, have an uncle in Montreal, and that
Right.
way we help our family. But if you don't have anyone outside, how do you survive?
No. So their currency is worth nothing?
It's literally nothing. Google it. It's
I
nothing. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's in very rough shape. Actually, my mom came a year ago, and she actually applied under the refugee status.
Right. Oh, wow. And she
because
got
it's
the...
that bad. Yeah, and she got
Right
it.
on.
So, yeah.
Well, we should talk about that then. What happened to you? Was that last year when it was looking, if you're open to
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
talking about
absolutely.
this, when it was looking like you were going to have to leave Canada and go back to Venezuela? Can you just
Yeah.
take me through what was the first moment where something was like, oh shit?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been here for 8 years, and I applied as express entry, so to become a permanent resident. So express entry means that you fall into, it's called the Canadian Experience Class, so you can apply after you've studied or worked for over 5 years. But you're competing with people. It's crazy. So you literally go online, put all your information, I've studied, I've worked, this is my Canadian experience here. And then that gives you a score, and then you fall into X amount of people that are applying at the same time, and you get selected from that group.
Okay.
After that, that means that they are willing to look at your application and see if you qualify.
Right.
So I applied. I was like, okay, I came here as an 18-year-old. I went right to school. I graduated with honors, and I've been working in my industry ever since I graduated. So I thought I was doing pretty good. And I'm like, okay, so back in that moment, I was talking to my family in Venezuela. It's like, you can't come here. Things are really bad.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, that's okay, because I'm going to become a permanent resident. So I was at work, about a year and a half ago, and I applied in April. And in May, literally, I was at work. I think it was around 2:30. I remember very clearly. I got an email. I opened it, and it was a rejection letter. The reason was because apparently the people that I was competing against, I guess, they had more experience than I had. So, which meant that they were older than me. So younger families, if you're 35 years old, 30-year-old, there's so much I can do with my age, right? So it just said that I didn't have enough work experience. So they encouraged me to apply in a year to gain more experience, but in the meantime, that meant that I had to go back or apply for something else.
Wow.
So everything, I had a job, I was doing fine, and then I got rejected. And honestly, it was a bit more personal than that, because to me, this is home now.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I love this place. I've worked. I've been responsible. And then it feels like, oh, they still don't want me. So after that, it's your entire world is okay, my actual home, I can't go back. So I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I'm like, well, where can I go? After that, I ended up talking to a lawyer, hiring a lawyer. I ended up getting a work visa for another year. And then after that, I waited for another year and applied to become a permanent resident. And finally, like, they approved it. I don't have my card, but it's approved.
Okay.
So I'm under a work visa again. But even then, it was a very, very, hard thing to go through. Because, I felt like I didn't have any, I've tried to be, like, being an immigrant is a hard thing. Feeling that you belong really somewhere else. Everything is harder, like to get a job, to the culture, everything. It can get pretty lonely, but I was like, okay. Like, honestly, as an 18-year-old that comes here and never parties, I never literally, while I was going to school, I'm like, no, I have to study. And I never, literally, Patrick, never got drunk, not even once.
Good for you.
While I was going through school. So thank you.
Good job.
That was hard, actually. I kind of regret it. No, I'm kidding.
Well, maybe once would have been all right, but yeah.
When I graduated, I went out. Yeah, that was the one time.
Right on.
But anyways, it was a bit more personal. It wasn't, got rejected, I have a home to go to. It's like, I can't go home.
So how close was it to were you like looking in the mirror and being like, how certain were you that you were going to get booted out, like get kicked out?
Oh, after I got rejected?
Yeah.
Well, I called immigration as soon as I got rejected, and they said, well, you can apply for a work visa or a visitor's visa, but I couldn't say as a visitor because I needed to make money to survive, right?
Right.
So they were like, apply for a work visa. However, you can't work until you get that document. And I'm only allowed to be, it's called implied status. So literally you can be here with no like documents, valid documents for 90 days.
Okay.
So in that, like, literally, it was like every day I'm like, I haven't gotten a letter. So they were like, if you don't get your work visa in 90 days, you have to go back home. And when you get approved, you can come back. And then the situation at home was like, hey, Andrea, like talking to my grandmother, by the way, don't come, because if you come back, they were, the government was saying that they weren't renewing their passports. They wanted to take our passports away.
Oh, wow.
So if you wanted to travel, the idea was like you had to write a letter to the government. It's like, hey, I want to go to Canada for 2 months to visit my daughter. Can I go? Literally. And then if they say yes, they can say, yeah, you can go, but for a week. So it's not even a valid passport. It's that like travel document for X amount of time, whatever time they want you to stay.
So again, like how close were you to going back home? Like, were you pretty certain it was going to happen?
I was certain, like, until, for a month. After I got rejected, of course, you go downhill immediately. I'm like, okay, I'm out. Like, I'm not going to stay here illegally, so I'm out.
Right.
So for that, I did apply, like, for my work visa, literally, like, the next day. But in the meantime, like, I had to stop working. And I was just waiting. So that's the worst thing. It wasn't like, okay, I'm going to distract myself. I was literally sitting home. I was like, do I sell my car? Do I sell my things? What do I do? And talking to my family is like, I'm going to go back home whether you like it or not. And they were like, okay, we'll make it work, Andrea, but we hope you don't come back.
Right.
And having that, honestly, like, it was a very, like, I barely got any sleep, really. But it was a very hopeless situation, let's say that.
No kidding. And so, and you had to be let go from your job because they couldn't keep you?
I couldn't really legally work. So
Right.
I had to stop working for about, 80 days.
80 days. And you were in a relationship with somebody and that also crumbled at the same time?
Yeah, I was in a relationship for 3 years in total. Actually, my first boyfriend and only boyfriend, I had my first boyfriend at 22 years old. And it was a great relationship. It was at the start, you start a relationship thinking it was going to last.
Sure.
And they were like really good times. We went to the same church. We started as friends. And he was 4 years younger than me. And it was his first relationship as well. So we started hanging out a lot, and you know what? After 3 months of going on dates or hanging out, I was like, okay, what's going to happen here? So we had a conversation, and then he was like, okay, I'm a little scared, but like I like you, so let's date. Do you want to be my girlfriend? And I was like, oh, great. The first 2 weeks, literally, he wasn't even holding my hand. I will speak like really honestly. And I remember we were at his house watching a movie, and I was like, hey, can I ask you something? Like, do you like me? Like, we're dating, but do you actually like me? Because we still act like friends.
Right.
And he said, can I think about it?
Oh boy.
So, I mean,
That's
that's
the
your
answer you
answer
want.
right there. That's your answer right there. And he's like, no, I didn't mean, like, I just, like, you know, it's my first relationship. I don't know. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go home. He's like, I'll call you tomorrow. And then he literally sends me a text the next day, and he's like, you know what, Andrea, I don't think I can keep doing this because sometimes when I'm with you, sometimes I don't know if you're pretty or not. Sometimes I think you're pretty, and some other times I'm like, nah, I don't think she's pretty at all.
Oh, God.
So, and via text,
Jesus.
not even a call, not even anything. He's like, I don't have anything else to say. If you want to talk about it, sure, but that's about it for me. And it was pretty harsh. Like,
That's
I
a
mean,
pretty
after
horrible
2
thing.
weeks of dating, but like as a girl, it's like
Right.
literally, and then you start looking at yourself. I'm like, oh my gosh, someone like forcing themselves to like you. It's like that is, and when you think they're like not in love with you, but when you like you think that actually they like hanging out with me, they like me for who I am, and
Right.
this is going great, and like no, never mind. Even when I smiled at you, I was forcing myself to like you. It's like, okay. Stopped talking after 8 months, but
Okay.
we had the same friend, like group of friends, and we went to the same church, so we were always kind of seeing each other. And he was into photography, so well, it's my fault. I'll take responsibility and ownership of that. He was like, after a year, he's like, you know what? I was stupid. I was very mature. Andrea, please give you another chance.
I always think you're pretty now.
I always think you're pretty if you wear makeup. No, I'm kidding. He didn't say that, but I thought about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you know what? I stayed single, and yeah, I still liked him. So I was like, okay, like that time we dated.
Right.
We dated for 2 years. It was a very toxic relationship in very different ways. But to be honest, I didn't see my value. It was one of like, you know, it's like I have invested so much of my time.
Right.
I remember like the first year, I know it wasn't going great, but I'm like, I didn't want to go through the process of letting that person go because it's not only a romantic relationship, it's a friendship. You're used to just being with that person.
Right.
And, you know, like trying, like finding a new normal and going to a first date again. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go through that. I'm
Right.
just going to stick through it. So long story short, when I get to the point of like getting rejected that day, I remember that I called him crying because he was waiting to hear back and see what was going to like happen with me.
Right.
And I called him back and I was like, okay, I got rejected, but there's hope. I can get my work visa and all this. But I was like, I need you. Like, I'm so sad. And he was just quiet. And he was like, okay, is that all you have to say? And I said, well, yeah, those are pretty bad news, don't you think? And he said, honestly, Andrea, I want to talk to you about something. And, you know, already know.
Yeah,
and
we
I
know
was
where
in
that's
front of
going.
my boss at the time. Literally, I was crying at the office.
Right.
And I was in front of my boss and our editor at the time. And they saw my face. I was like, yeah. He's like, I'm hearing all this story. And we've been waiting to hear back. But I don't care. Like, I honestly don't care. You're telling me you're going back to your country that is in, like it's hell at the moment. And in their relationship. And I've been thinking about this for a while. And I literally feel nothing.
Wow.
So I'm sorry, but I think we should break up. And I mean, you're getting two really bad situations. One is like, I'm scared about my safety and going back to my country. And also the fact that the most important person that at that time I loved
Right.
is saying like, I literally couldn't care less, even if you go back to hell and like you're not safe in that environment, not even as a person.
Right.
I care about your like safety as a friend. I literally have no emotions, no feelings. So, and that to me, both situations, I was literally speechless. Like I was in front of my boss, and
What do
he's
you
like,
say?
I think we should go for a drive, Andrea, because you're not saying anything. And after that, to be honest, so I had to stop working.
Right.
So I had a lot of time to feel sorry about myself and to like kind of go through the breakup
Right.
in a very intense way. So my mental health started to go downhill.
Yeah.
I've always, not always, but through my being with my mom and my stepdad, I remember I said it was very toxic environment. So he was one day, and I'll share this. I think I was 16, 17 at the time. I said he was physically abusive, so against my mom. Like he will slap my mom, punch my mom.
Wow.
And I always heard about it in the room, but I knew what was going on. And one day, I knew they were fighting, and I was like, he probably slapped her. But he came, they were yelling, it was quiet. He came to my room. I remember this so clearly. And then he knocked on my door, and I was like, oh, okay, here we go. I was like, he's going to punch me too. But I opened, and he was smiling. I was like, He's like, hey, your mom is calling you, Andrea. She's in her room. Go ahead. And I'm like, okay. When I go to the room, my mom was like on the floor, like literally because he beat her.
Wow.
And he wanted me to see that.
Whoa.
And I remember that very clearly. And my mom was just embarrassed. She's like, no, Andrea, go to your room. He just called you for you to see me like this. And I remember she's like, please, I'm like, just lock your room. Just go to your room. And then he went ahead. I had a dog at the time, Rocky, a Cocker Spaniel. And he went by, while I was with my mom, he went downstairs, and within a minute, he was punching my dog. He was beating my dog.
What was this guy's problem?
Well,
He was an angry, drunk Irishman?
Yeah, pretty much. His childhood, and there was abuse at his house, too. His mom died when he was 10 years old, and his dad was an alcoholic for a very long time. So
that's how that works a lot of times, right? It just progresses down the generations.
You have the contrast of, in the outside world, we were this perfect Christian family who were helping like 1,000 people, and like, it's like you like face, and we had people staying in the back of our house, and like, I was like, oh yeah, we love people, we're here, and then in the back is like
he's
literally
beating his wife.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah, so I remember that time because it was significant for me, because I went to my room and I was just told to be quiet. Right. My mom was like, just be quiet, like, protect yourself. Mm-hmm. And it was that time I always used to like just listen to music and like kind of like forget about it. Right. But that time I couldn't even say anything, and I didn't even know how to express myself or even cry. So I went to the room and literally cut myself for the first time.
Is that right?
And it was.
How old were you at that time?
I was 16 years old at the time. And it wasn't to the point of like, I just want to end my life. It's just like I needed to feel stronger than something and like focus on a different kind of pain. Interesting.
I had a friend who got into some cutting, and I'm curious about what's the motivation there. Like
It's different for a lot of people. Some people really want to end their lives. To me, it was the emotional pain. I knew that I couldn't put an end to it because it was a marriage that I wasn't I couldn't end the marriage, or I couldn't just walk away from home. Right. And I couldn't really speak up to my family because I was trying to, be a friend to my mom and be like, okay, I'm not going to run to my grandparents and tell them what's going on. Right. So I was like, okay, Mom, I'll just be on your side. So to me, it was like I needed to like let something out. With words, crying, it wasn't really doing it. I didn't really know how to do that. So I was like, I need to feel that I'm stronger than something, even if it hurts. Right. And you've heard of like self-harm, and I was like, I was aware of it. I'm like, okay, let's just give this a try to feel something else and like think about the physical pain that I'm going through, and stop thinking about the hell that I'm going through at my house. Right. But and I did it the first time. Of course, I was super shaky, but to be honest, of course, it's messed up 100%. Nobody should do it. But it kind of gave me that high of like, whoa, this is messed up, how it hurts, but I know I'm not going to die. Like, I feel the pain. Huh. And I don't know. It's weird. It's a very toxic, of course, like mindset. And it's just like coping mechanism. Sure. Okay. Very unhealthy coping mechanism. Wow. And then I started doing that. My mom, of course, didn't know. And then I kind of did that when things got bad at home, not every day or anything. Right. But I'm like, okay, this kind of helps, and I can't control the situation. So I did until I actually came here. And to be honest, when I came here, although I was far away from them, whether I was kind of used to it every time I felt like I was going through a challenge, whether it was at school or someone was mean to me or I felt rejected, I knew that was there. And I kind of got used to it. So going through this breakup and those news, I was like, I knew exactly what I was going to do. But this time I was like, I'm just going to go another step. So I started like more like deep cuts.
Okay.
It wasn't just too like superficial. I'm like, okay, I'm going to research this. And it's like, okay, you have to cut this way for it to bleed more. And then if you're in the bathtub with water, you're like, you're going to bleed more. And I was kind of it was 13 Reasons Why. Came out, that show.
Sure, yeah.
And it's all about like the girl committed suicide and she cuts herself.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
And I know that they cut out one of the scenes because when they released it at first, you can see the whole scene where she's cutting and she's literally dying. I think they edited that part because it was too much, but I got to see it.
Oh.
And to be honest, it was so dark that I was kind of inspired by that.
Wow.
So I remember in that time, I cut myself and I was at home, but I told one of my friends, hey, I usually do this when I'm going through a hard time. Mm-hmm. And tonight, like, I feel like I'm going to do it, but I'll be fine. And she's a nurse, and she's like, okay, I'm just going to stop by your house. And at that time, I was taking antidepressants.
Okay.
So I took over 45 pills. And I also cut myself, like a really deep cut. You can see the scars still. And when she got there, I don't really remember exactly what was going on. I just woke up at the hospital.
Oh, wow. How old were you at this point?
At this point, I was probably 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is...
Yeah, it's fairly recent.
Yeah.
So I was at the hospital, and I remember that I woke up, and then I was like, oh, crap, I survived. That was my thought. And I remember I had my stitches around in my left arm.
Right.
And I remember that the doctor came, and he's like, okay, you survived the overdose. And it was literally because that day I didn't eat. I just had popcorn. And apparently because I ate, I was like literally throwing up.
Oh.
That because I ate, because I had something in my stomach. But if not, I probably would have died. And also the cut, he said, if you would have cut your other arm, probably actually die.
Wow.
And I literally, Patrick, I'm not kidding you. I was so bitter and so lost that I looked at the doctor in the eye, and I was like, well, thank you. Now I know what to do for next time.
Whoa.
And looking back and even saying it out loud, it was like, it hurts. It hurts me because I've come so far, and we can talk about that later. But in that moment, I was like, this is the end for me, and I don't literally have nothing. I'm getting kicked out of this country. I can't go back home because I'm probably gonna die on the way there, or
die when you get there.
When I get there, and the person that I loved here, saying, I never cared about you and I never loved you. You're worthless to me. So literally, the meaning of life, it was completely gone to me. And so after that, of course I needed help, and my friend was like, she can't go home. Like I said, she was a nurse, so I actually had to stay at the hospital talking to psychiatrists and literally being watched for 2 weeks to kind of see what was going on with me, because it definitely wasn't normal. At this point, the fact that I was so straight up, I was like, haha, I'm gonna kill myself. Next time I'm just gonna cut my 2 arms and say goodbye. When you say those things, they literally can't let you go. So I by the time I had no phone, nothing, and they did a bunch of tests to see what's going on with me, and I got diagnosed with bipolar.
Okay.
And
how long ago was the diagnosis?
The diagnosis, was around the same time. Yeah, that same. So I was almost 25, I would say.
So we knew each other at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
We knew each other at this point. Of course, I didn't even know what bipolar meant. To me, I said, it was something I was like, okay, well, it's people that are basically crazy. They're happy in 1 minute, and the next minute they can be crying or yelling and losing their minds. So I'm like, okay, now I'm crazy.
Oh, now I'm crazy.
That makes sense.
I knew that. Tell me something I didn't know.
Tell me something I didn't know. But to be honest, I was like, when I heard that, I was like, okay, that makes sense, because the way I think, it's definitely not normal, or shouldn't be normal.
Right.
But I also thought, it's you know what? My ex-boyfriend and all, even he's going to be like, oh my gosh, yes, I knew it. She was crazy. It's now I have to deal with this label. And he's going to be like, I was right. Oh my gosh, I'm glad I cut it off with her. So I was like, what are people going to think of me? The crazy person, So I didn't tell anyone really until like I probably waited a year and
Wow.
and I was going like testing and like medication. And I mean, we worked together and we were talking about it later. It's like some days I wasn't really myself, some medication that I literally couldn't even feel anything.
Wow.
Like, it doesn't matter what you tell me, swear at me, yell at me. I kind of knew that I was supposed to feel something, but I was so numb. I couldn't feel anything. Not happy, not sad, not angry. It's like I was sleeping. I was like working, kind of working, really.
Yeah.
But emotionally just like dead, just because.
What medicine, what drug was that did that?
I tried lithium.
Oh, lithium. And it just killed everything. Just depressed everything.
Yeah, at first that's what they wanted because I wasn't really hurting myself because I was like, I don't even know, I'm numb.
Right.
Like I just go and I go to work and go back to sleep and I don't care about talking to anyone. But that's what they wanted, just to like deal with my emotions because I couldn't really deal with my breakup or the situation that I was going through at the time without drugs. So of course, when you get diagnosed with bipolar, they call it like episodes when you hear. So I never heard voices. They always ask, like, do you hear any voices like telling you to hurt yourself? It was kind of my own voice. Like I just wanted to do it. It wasn't a weird voice coming at me or never saw anything.
That's good.
But it was like my own thinking that I was like, oh, okay, let's just take this pills and like see what happens. And if I go kind of thing.
Right.
So I understood that I needed also I was seeing a psychiatrist twice a week.
Okay.
And I was taking pills, but it didn't help me. So I took them. I gave them a try for 8 months. And like I said, I wasn't myself. I didn't have motivation to like work out or to do anything. Yeah, I showed up to work.
Right.
But even the people that was going, sometimes I would get asked by my coworkers. So I was like, "Are you okay? Like, are you having a bad day?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just working on myself." But clearly, I wasn't.
Right.
But I wasn't ready to open up and say, "Hey, I'm taking lithium because I have bipolar." You know.
Yeah. Well, and you don't even necessarily have to tell your coworkers that.
No.
You know, but that was the thing about working for that small company. It was very much like a family, and everybody's issues became everybody's issues, right?
Yeah, and that's a good thing. And the bad thing is like it's great to click with people, and like that's the thing. It's like a small business. Like you become a family, and you're very close. But when there's when there's things that you can't share, it's kind of hard to hide that because you know that person,
right?
And you're kind of used to sharing everything, but I just wasn't ready. And it was hard for me because I felt like maybe my boss thinks that I don't care about my job anymore, and I'm just like showing 9 to 5 and not caring about anything because I'm not smiling and I'm not myself. And it affected the people around me.
Yeah.
And I think it will affect me even if it was to you going through that situation and seeing you not being yourself.
Right.
It's like, and I'm sure a lot of people were worried about me. But I was kind of trying to do the best for myself and figure out how I felt about it and what to do with the situation that I was going through.
Well, first, I really appreciate you sharing all that. Yeah. That's a hell of a thing to go through. I guess what I'd ask was and you said it, I guess, but to me it sounded like you had no home. It seemed like you had nowhere to go. You had no connection, and so life lost its meaning.
Yes.
So was there a moment where the meaning started to come back? When you start, I guess what I'm asking now is to take us to the third act of the story where when did the upward swing start?
Yeah, I think for me it was, after that 8 months of taking lithium and in a way was helpful, the fact that I couldn't really feel anything because like I said, I was seeing a psychiatrist twice a week. And there was a lot, I had to go through the breakup and I had to go through even going back to my stepdad and my dad that I don't really have a relationship with my dad, but that was a whole nother story.
Your real dad, your biological?
Yeah.
Is he still alive? Is he still around?
He's still alive. He's still around.
In Venezuela?
Yes, in Venezuela. So even going through that, things is okay, where did this start? And and after that, taking that time for myself, I remember that my psychiatrist said, okay, you can't really change the past and you can't really control what people think about you. and what people think about, bipolar, being bipolar.
Right.
So it's like, okay, Andrea, if you're not going to end your life, you know that you're going to be awake the next day and the next day and the next day, and those relationships are gone, then what's going to get you through the day?
Was that a shift? Start thinking, oh, I have to keep living.
Yeah, that was kind of because I will literally was so numb that I'm like, okay, I'm going to sleep. Okay, I didn't even think about, okay, what's my 5-year plan, or what's
God.
never.
You didn't even have a 5-minute plan.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I guess I'm surviving and waiting for my work visa.
Right.
But other than that, I have literally nothing else going on for me. So I remember that session that I was there, and I was like, she's like, okay, well, whether you like it or not, you're going to be alive. So what are you going to do?
That's a great question.
And then it kind of got me thinking, and I was like, can I get back to you? I don't know, in a week. I have to think about it.
Yeah.
And I thought about myself, and I was like, what did I need? Like, when I was going through those situations, I honestly needed somebody, one, to listen to me, and not necessarily to give me advice. I just wanted to be heard, because I didn't even understand myself. And I was like, okay, I know I was dumb for being in a very toxic relationship and taking him back and saying
Right.
yes. I know that, so I don't need anyone to tell me, and I don't need anyone to tell me you're better off without him. Yeah, but I feel like crap
Right.
anyways. So I needed to be, I wanted just to talk to someone and be heard, but I also wanted to, in that moment, it would have been helpful to have someone saying, you know what, I went through the same thing, and this was kind of my experience, and you'll get through it. You'll get through it.
Right.
So when I started thinking about that and going back to storytelling, and I was like, okay, what can I do with my life? And I was like, you know what, my friends weren't asking for advice for me. Of course, I was so messed up that they weren't coming for relationship advice or any kind of advice in that sense. And I'm like, okay. So back in the day, like I said, going back to the orphanage and the rehab center and the families that we were helping,
Right.
I got connected to a lot of girls. Girls that were in, different kind of needs, girls going through toxic relationships back in the day.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, maybe I can turn this into something positive, not in my own circle. So it's like, okay, how can I tell my story in a way that is not not towards the people that I know,
Right.
but towards someone that needs to hear the story and is going through the same situation, saying, you know what, I don't have it all together yet. I went through this, but I'm still going somehow. So I was like, okay, maybe I can tell my story. And I created an Instagram account.
Right on.
Called Girls with Feels. And my main goal was a place for girls to come share their stories, DM me with their stories, and have a friend in me.
Cool.
And also, I'm writing a book, which is...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
That's awesome.
My book is I just thought it's if I ever have a daughter, I know that as a daughter, to me, to come to my mom and tell her all my going through my relationship, I knew it was gonna hurt her.
Right.
Seeing hearing all my stories, and she wasn't gonna get it. She was always gonna take my side.
Right.
So it's I know that having a daughter, probably she's not gonna come to me all the time, especially in the moments that she really needs someone.
Right.
So I want her. My book is all my stories. And for I just thought it's hey, maybe when she's going through her rough time, maybe she won't come talk to me, but she can read my stories and know that her mom went through it and she made it. So
That's
I'm writing
awesome.
my book. I don't
Right
know
on.
how long
No,
it's gonna.
You have to.
I don't know how long it's gonna take, but and I was like, okay, well that's gonna take a while. So how can I reach out more people? So I created this Instagram account where I've shared more than a couple stories.
Yeah.
And with a positive spin outlook. And it's not I know it all, but it's it's okay that you're hurting, and it's okay that you think this way. Just keep moving forward. And I've had girls reach out to me, girls that I of course don't know, and
That's
they
awesome.
just send me those DMs or voice memos, and it's
Wow.
hey, you know what, I read your story and literally going through a breakup and literally feel the same way.
Wow.
Thank you so much. And I had FaceTime calls with girls that are not even in the province.
Wow.
And just listening to them.
What's that account if people want to follow it?
Girls with Feels.
Girls with Feels.
Yep. And it's a space. It's meant to be that. It's not only just for me saying like, hey, I know what you have to do. It's like, it's okay to feel like you're a mess, really, but you can get through it slowly.
Right.
And it's been awesome. Just like, actually, I'm friends with a few of them, and I went for coffee with one of them a couple months ago, and I'm trying to be, like, I just thought it's okay. I went through this. It would have been nice to have a friend that, weird enough, like, didn't really have a personal connection to me.
Okay.
And was there to hear and doesn't feel like, okay, Andrea has a reputation. Andrea went through this, it's like.
Somebody that doesn't really know your whole backstory.
That doesn't know me, but can still relate to what I'm going through.
Of course.
So, yeah, that's kind of like what I wanted to do with that. And so far, so good. And I think it's been really helpful for me and for other people as well.
That's very heroic what you're doing. And it's actually, having studied some literature, the heroic journey classically is exactly what you're describing. You leave your homeland, you go and you do battle with the demons in the underworld, whether those are real demons or demons inside, and you come back around, and once you get around, that's when you turn around and start trying to help the community. And that's what you're doing. Yeah. So you're a hero. Whether you want to know it or not, you are.
Well, thank you. And I want to keep doing that. And that, all honesty, means the world to me. Like, it's not a job, of course. It's not draining to hear those stories. It's actually, like, it's awesome. And it helps me not to feel like I'm the only one going through that or thinking that way. And it's like, there's no judgment. Yeah, we're going through it together. And I think it's powerful, again, just like the power of sharing a story. Yeah. You never know who's listening. You never know who's reading. And the fact is, like, yeah, people can, especially in social media, everything looks so perfect on Instagram. Of course. Like, we all have the perfect lives. There's no bad days at all. There's no rush hour. There's no COVID. Everything is just wonderful.
Every picture's in focus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, life is not really pretty all the time. So why not just be real about it in a positive way still?
That's beautiful. That's interesting you say that you hear these stories and you don't make a judgment on these people, right? Like, that's the biggest takeaway I've had from this podcast is like, just like listen, and then who am I to even say, like, some of the shit you just told me, it would have been very easy for me to be like, wow, you're weak. Yeah. You should just got over it. Yeah, absolutely. Once you were accepted back in Canada, you should have just got back down. Yeah. Stop all that. But it's like, who am I? Because, like, I've done stuff that's shameful that if I told you, you could just as easily say, well, what'd you do that for? What'd you smoke dope for 10 years for? Why'd you do things that were self-destructive for so long? Yeah. Once you can find common ground with a person like this and then not, like, who am I to say what's right or wrong that you did? And then it's like, you can just breathe. And everything becomes so much easier when you don't actually give a damn about, just tell me the story 100%. And I will listen to the story. But like, so much of that is lost now. It's like people think they have a right, and people think they have a right to make a judgment on you. Absolutely.
And just like, it's crazy, especially with the people that, I don't know if you have those kind of friends that, as long as, like, when you go through a hard situation, especially like breakups or going through a divorce, people that you haven't heard from years and years, all of a sudden they think they have to say, you got like those texts, oh, hey, how are you doing? And I'm like, why didn't you reach out to me when I was in a happy relationship?
Right. Why do you think that is? They want a little bit of...
It's not because they want to help. It's really because they want to hear how messy your life is and even feel better about themselves sometimes, to be honest. Because sometimes you hear like going, and it's true, not everyone, but it's like, if you weren't there in the good times when life was okay, why are you coming just to have an opinion and tell me what to do when you haven't been in my life for so long? And one of the things that coming here, going through the last day in Venezuela, I was at the airport with my mom, and she was crying, and then she was like, hey, Andrea, you're going there. That's probably going to be your new home. And she looked at me and she's like, remember that you don't have a past there, so don't be scared of being who you really are without going through all the hurt from your stepdad, from me, from your dad. Just be who you really, really are, and don't be afraid. Like she said, love like you've never been hurt. And that's like, I was like, what? And that's true. Like,
That's
it's like,
a hell of
I
a
was
thing.
like, like you've never been hurt. And I was like, is that even possible? Because that's where like the fear comes. And sometimes you're like, it's like, I can't really be myself. I have to protect myself. And
Right.
that's a background that I had
Sure.
in my family. So that to me was very powerful. And until this day, I kind of like, I think about that every single morning. And it's like, you know what people have done to you probably is not fair, but you have the power to be who you want to be. And if that's getting in the way of being the best version of yourself, it's not worth it. There's still, you have power over your thoughts. And
Yeah.
That's another topic. Like literally a thought, how powerful a thought can be.
Sure.
And how far it can take you. Or like it can literally take you downhill very, very, very fast.
Right.
So although I've gone through a lot of things, I had really good people and really good advice, whether I saw it at the time or not. And right now I'm just trying to give back.
Beautiful. If you're enjoying this conversation, please subscribe on YouTube and give us a like. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. And now, back to the conversation. Now, that's really interesting what you said. Like, do you think that's a big part of, like, obviously people immigrate to the first world or to the north, to the west for different reasons. But like, is there that aspect of leaving your personal troubles behind? Like you're leaving a bad economy, bad situation, but is there a personal element to that where it's like, I get to now start my life over again? Is there, I guess what I'd ask is like, do you know other immigrants that you could speak to? Yes, I do. And I think that's a really great concept. And I guess in a smaller scale, you can apply it as like a new job, starting a new job, sure, or going to like school and nobody knows you. It's kind of, there's an excitement like, man, these people don't know my past. They don't know, how shitty I am. They don't know how hangry I get if I don't eat right at 12:30, and they don't know anything. So there's like, it's exciting that I get to be myself, right, and try again. But that only lasts so long. Like people are people. People figure you out. Like people figure it out. So I think that was exciting at first, but it's like, yeah, you can have a new beginning, be in a new country or a new job or a new school, but you're still you. Mm-hmm. And if you don't deal with what's really affecting you, that's gonna keep coming up. True. It sucks. True. But it's true. It's like you're you, and the you that you're being right now, you have to deal with it. It's not. And I'm not saying going through those situations when I was hurting myself is not who I was or who I am, is who I was choosing to be. And that's something that we have to remember. Like one of the things that I like, one of the quotes that I really like, it says, you can't judge yesterday's decisions with today's wisdom. Right? Definitely. Because when you make a mistake, whether you like it or not, however long it takes, you learn from them. Right. Whether it's a year, whether it's the next day, the next month. But if you hadn't gone through that, you didn't know better at the time, right? I look back at my relationship, I'm like, heck no, Andrea, what were you thinking? But at the time, I was trying my best. At the time, I was trying to make a relationship work. I thought I was fighting for that person. That was what true love was. But I can't be harsh on myself and be like, yeah, you're so stupid. It's like, I just didn't know better. And at that time, I was trying to be the best version of myself with the knowledge and the wisdom that I had. That's interesting. Why do you think, okay, that's interesting. There's a lot of shit there. Yeah, I know. That's really interesting. I asked, is there something about leaving, you get to leave part of you behind when you come to a new country, but is it also like, no matter, you can't outrun yourself. You bring all that baggage with you no matter what, right? Yeah, and that's the thing, it's like of coming to a new place, a new country. It's like, okay, I get to be like myself, but I also want to fit in, I want to belong. I want to be here. So like, I used to, honestly, when I came here, I used to, like Patrick, read at night and watch like TV shows to get rid of my accent. I'm like, I hated that every time I say hi or like, how are you, or a 5-minute conversation, right, people are like, oh,
oh, where are you from? Your accent. I'm like, shut up. I'm one of you. I want to belong here. This is home. But it's like Andrea from Venezuela all the time. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud to be Venezuelan. But that was the thing. It's like, okay, I'm new, but I want to be myself. But I'm also insecure because I'm different. And some people love that. Oh, you're Spanish. That's so cool, whatever. And other people, like, it's like, oh, yeah, but you have an accent. You're weird. Or I don't like your accent. Or I don't like Spanish people. Like, So there is, like, that thing. It's like, they know that you're not from here. And that there's that aspect. So you're trying to be yourself, but you're also trying to kind of fit in and blend in with the crowd. When, to be honest, I don't think that's possible at all. You're who you are, and your culture is your culture.
Right.
And I came here when I was 18, so most of my life I was in Venezuela. So it's kind of like a lot of things going on at the same time.
That's interesting. And you're not the first person. Like, I talked to a guy, like I said, who grew up in France, so he's got a pretty pronounced accent.
Yep.
I was talking to somebody else who, he was born in... he's African. He's born in Tanzania, I guess. And he said to me, and so did the French guy, Faisal, my friend, said, as soon as people realize that I don't have an accent, then they take me. Whereas then my friend Martin that I talked to, he said because of his accent, people, they slow down, they make so obviously we, speaking for all white people.
Let it out, Patrick. Let it out.
I'm not going to do it. But I am going to say, there is something that goes on there unconsciously.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that sometimes we act in a way where we change our behaviors because we think something of you because of what we see or hear. Has that been your experience where, like you're saying, the accent, it's like everybody wants to talk about your accent or maybe your skin tone or maybe. Yeah. And so does that make you feel like, you don't belong or you're some kind of novelty or you're less human, or has that contributed to your...
Yeah, I have a story about that.
Sure. We love stories here.
So at my job, when I got hired as a project manager, I did very well. Like it was a new thing for me, but I just wanted to make it work, and I was willing to learn. And like I said, I'm a people person. So honestly, one of the advantage of being an immigrant is that you have to be very social, and you have to get yourself out there.
Interesting.
To make friends, because you have to make new friends. And it's kind of like you can't really be shy, or you can, but it will be a pretty lonely lifestyle. So I got hired, and I was a project manager in a year in. I was doing pretty well, and I don't know what I did that day, but we were talking about how good I was doing, and my boss said, he's like, man, Andrea, I'm very proud of you. You're awesome. Like, honestly, you've been doing, like, really, really well. And I'm not gonna lie. He's like, I really needed a project manager. But my thought is like, oh my gosh, she's just gonna talk to our top clients. She's gonna go in there and they're gonna hear her accent. And he's like, I was scared about that because sometimes that's just not a good thing. And honestly, he was giving me a compliment. But I was like, oh, so you thought my accent was a disadvantage or was like something negative that people will look down on me.
Right.
So that was like kind of like a bittersweet moment. I was like, okay, so I'm cool, but you didn't believe in me, but now I'm finding out about it. And and I was like, okay, thank you, but that stuck with me. For sure. And and I know, like, sometimes, of course, I'm Spanish, but I hear, like, different accents, and you kind of, it's like, it's like, oh, there's an accent, maybe I have to talk slower or anything. But there's a difference of being, like, mindful of that. It's like, okay, I want this person to understand me. And there's a difference. It's like, you're probably dumb because you don't speak very well, right? And people can look down on you 100%. So that was one of the experiences that, made me very insecure. And kind of like going back to my 18-year-old self when I came here, I'm like, oh my gosh, Andrea, start practicing, get rid of your accent once again. But you kind of have to be tough and just show people that, no, you're more than that. And actually, I admire people that speak more than one language. You don't know how hard it is to actually go to school. Like, and it's like, you're very smart, whether you have an accent or not. The fact that you can speak like 2 languages, to me, that's awesome. Then that's something that you should be proud of. But of course, it's different, like to look at yourself and be that encouraging and that proud of yourself all the time. So yeah, that was definitely an insecurity of mine. And sometimes I have that every time I meet someone new. In the back of my mind, it's like, are they making fun of me? Are they? Oh, they're probably just thinking about my accent. Maybe they hate it, maybe they love it, but I don't know. And sometimes I go there when I really shouldn't really think of that. I should just be confident. But yeah, that is definitely a struggle that a lot of immigrants have to face.
Right. So where are you at with it these days? You're not trying to get rid of your accent, are you?
To be honest, if I could.
Really?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I love accents. I just don't like Spanish accents in general. I don't think it sounds pretty.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but
Okay.
to me, it's just because
Well, you're not going to like Roberto then when you meet him.
No, that's fine. We can speak in Spanish. Like,
Oh,
he speaks
boy.
Spanish? Yeah.
Oh, sure he does.
Oh, yeah, there we go. And some people appreciate it, but to me, it's good day by day. Like, I still, like I said, when I meet someone,
Right.
even like thinking about going on dates again, I'm like, oh my gosh, now I have to tell him, okay, I'm Spanish. Do you think my accent is cute or does it bother you,
Right.
really? Like, be honest. But at the time, I've been speaking English for, like I said, over 12 years now. And I think, yeah, the accent is just going to stick with me and it's a part of me. So I'm just trying to embrace it. So that's where I'm at.
Right on. And so, yeah, I think that's probably the move, right? Like you kind of have to, it's like you were saying earlier, it's like there is the ideal self that you're working towards, but then there's also the core of who you are is like,
Yeah.
do you have to just accept it at some point? There's things about myself that I just know I'm probably never going to change.
Right?
I'm trying to get better every day, but there's also like, I'm wired a certain way.
Yeah, and then that's the thing. And I think, I'm like, okay, Andrea, why don't you like your accent? And I'm like, oh, it's because some people don't like it. It's not even about myself, really. It's about like...
It's external.
External.
That's
the thing.
Got to get away from that, I think.
Yeah, because if I'm here like by myself, like talking out loud, it doesn't
Right.
bother me. It's fine. But it's when I get to the outside world, I'm like, what are they thinking? And it's like, okay, then you need to stop that and actually be more confident about yourself and just stop thinking like that. It's a mindset, then I just have to change it.
Right on. Is that a big part? Maybe we're hitting on something here where like, if your validation, your self-worth is coming from external sources, other people, that's a problem, or it can be a problem. If you're seeking that, through social media, through like, I need to be accepted by somebody to feel accepted about myself. Like, has that been part of your upswing here, where you're more secure in yourself?
Absolutely. I think, again, even coming here, I think I've been needing like more validation, especially my first like 5 years. Like I said, that need to fit in. Sure. Sometimes different is attractive, but sometimes like being different is a no-go for a lot of people.
Right.
So I think, just again, validation and coming from toxic relationships.
Right.
And I speak in my family, I don't have any siblings. But in my family, my grandma has 3 sisters. And then there's my mom, and there's my auntie. So like around 5 ladies in my family. They're all divorced.
Interesting.
And sometimes, I was like, I thought about that. I'm like, am I going to go through the same path? I think they're all amazing women, and I love them, and I think they have great qualities. But they're all single, and they all think they're never going to get married again. And to me, I also think about that. And I've been rejected by my biological dad, by my stepdad, and by my boyfriend. So there's a lot of like baggage there that I still have to go through. So especially like validation. I used to play volleyball for over 15 years. I don't even like the sport. But I go into the sport because I wanted to be better than my guy friends. It was insane, Patrick. Like I was like, I'm gonna be so good at it that I'm gonna be practicing with them in high school. And literally within 3 years that happened.
You got there.
But I was like, because I was like, okay, I want validation, but I also want to have the power of saying I'm better than you. And I mean, that was my 15-year-old self. But that was like, there's a lot of fear there. And of course I got through it. I was like, okay, I actually want like to have a relationship with someone, and then getting rejected by that. So there's a lot of things as an immigrant and as someone that has had very toxic relationships that, external validation is a huge part. I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I'm like, I don't need validation. It's always nice to hear, hey, you're doing good, or you look great, or you're good at what you do. But that's different. That's encouragement, and it's healthy, and it's nice to hear. But when your whole value and your whole perspective about yourself, it depends on if you get a compliment or not, then that's where it comes toxic and unhealthy. And there's a difference. There's a fine line, but there's also a clear difference between just encouragement and just needing external validation to feel good about yourself.
Totally true. And it's a battle we got to go through every day. It's like, you have to be good enough for yourself, but also, come on. I mean, it's so nice to, I mean, like even the experience today shooting with your bosses and with those ladies that were modeling, it was like, I felt pretty good. It was fun. Like we all fit in. We all had a great experience. We made good content. It's like, had I just been home all day, I wouldn't have had that same, that fullness, that wholeness of my feeling.
Exactly. And I want to actually to talk and ask you about this and what you thought. So because we do like video editing. It's a thing that we do in our industry. I don't know as how do you feel about it, but as an editor, to me, when you're editing a video, you go film it, you go and then you come edit. And to you, it can be the most amazing video. You're super proud of it. And then you show it to a client and whoever, and they're like, this is garbage. I hate it.
That's
like,
never
what
happened
were
to me.
you thinking? Oh, really? Never.
Usually I think it's garbage and then I give it to the client and they go, he's a genius.
Amazing.
No, please.
So, and it's crazy because it's like, okay, I'm kind of putting myself into this. Like, that's kind of what I'm passionate about, but I'm constantly trying to please someone else. It's not my art. It's not my creativity. It's like I have to please someone else with what I do.
Right.
And I don't know if that has affected you sometimes.
Yes.
Of course, after a while, you kind of, you understand that it's just business only and it's not personal. It's not about your value. It's just like, this is what I want. Make it happen. It's not what you like. It's what I like. I'm paying you for that. And that's totally okay. But sometimes, I don't know, but it hurts sometimes. And you start doubting yourself. Like, am I doing even the right thing? Should I be doing this or not?
Well, yeah. I mean, boy, that's you said a lot of things that were right there. It's like, the video that you're creating it's a tool. It's got to do the job. And if they look at the video and say it's not doing the job, there's no call to action here. The product isn't advertised properly. That's fine. That's probably on you. It's actually, it all starts with a script. So if the script is shitty, you're never going to have a good video in the first place. But you're right. And lately what I've started to do is divorce myself from myself and from my creation. Okay. I create a video and the video's no good. Doesn't mean I'm no good. Doesn't mean anything's anything. Okay. It just means the video didn't do the job. But you're right. There's been times when it's like you slave away. I mean, I made an independent film 5 years ago. I've got another one just about ready to come out. And there's going to be people that watch. Thank you.
Yes.
But there's going to be people that watch those and they're going to say, that sucks. And it's like 3 years of my life went into this thing and someone spends 90 minutes watching and they goes, that sucked. But that's their right. But it doesn't mean that I suck. Exactly. It doesn't even mean the film sucks. It just means their interpretation of the film sucks. So what I've really been working on and through the podcast is like, interpretation is everything.
Absolutely.
So someone could listen to this conversation and say, that sucked. Who cares what those two people think? You're
right.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. Who gives a shit what I think? But that's the best part. That's so freeing because I say, who gives a shit what I think?
I don't care.
I haven't been even listening to what you're saying. No, I'm joking.
I knew it. I'm kidding. Yeah.
I'm just trying to get to 400 hours on YouTube and then I can start running ads. That's all this is.
All right. I appreciate the honesty.
No, but you're asking a great question. And my answer, well, tell me what you think, is just separate yourself from your creation. It's like, here's something I created and here's me. It's got nothing to do with me anymore.
Yeah.
That'd be my answer. So when the client comes down, like when we cut all these videos that we just shot today and they say, this all sucks, I'd say, well, I don't know.
All right.
Your shitty beige background is I'm totally joking,
but it's
yeah.
subjective. Like, it's like, it's an art.
It
as
is.
well. And you have to, and going back to storytelling, it's not your story really. You're trying to, like, you're helping, trying to tell that story in the best way that you can, but maybe your way is not the way that they want it. And understanding it's like, okay, and that happens a lot when people don't have an idea of like a background in videography or anything, but they see like the video, they're like, okay, now that I see it, this is not what I want. Like, this is actually what I meant. And I was like, it's annoying, very annoying after you spend several hours working on a project. And then finally, when you think you're done, oh, never mind. I'm going to get creative right now. I'm like, well, the work is done. So, and I understand that. It's like also keeping in mind, okay, this is your story. And like, yeah, you tell me how you want to tell it. And if I have to help you out at the start, then great. But it has nothing to do with you and how talented you are. But yeah, it's really, it takes time. And to me, it took time, especially starting. After graduating, I just wanted to be like, oh yeah, I want everybody to like what I do at the same time. And like at this, like the first edit, they're gonna love it. And it's like
usually not.
Yeah, and like actually not taking personal and not getting angry at that person, you know? Oh, they hate me. Oh, like it's not well, maybe they do.
Maybe they do,
but
that
they're
still
has nothing to do with your video.
And they're paying you, so.
And they're paying you, so anyways, and I think you have and I totally agree with what you said, and I think that's a great outlook and a nice way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, use it if you like. It's like, I guess being self-employed is like I still have a boss. I'm my own boss, but I'm actually trying to please like different people all the time, and yeah, it's a hell of a way to make a living.
Have you gone through a point where like you're like, did you think about like stopping or like kind of second guess yourself, question yourself, and like when it comes to like when you go through those like tough times of people not liking your job, like that was an example for me, and I was like, am I even doing the right thing? Do I even enjoy this anymore? Do I want to please other people? Why? Or is it worth it? Like, did you ever go through that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there was plenty of times in the past like where I was shooting at the Oilers games, and it was like it was a live show, the in-house, and it's like I was on a handheld camera in the audience, and it was like, get this shot, and you don't always get that shot, but that shot still goes up on the jumbotron, and you just put crap in front of 20,000 people.
Your crap.
Yes, and so there was nights that I walked out of that building like this.
Head down.
With my head down, just like, and the Oilers could have won 5-0, and it was like a Saturday night, it was a party, and I'm walking out of there like, I don't think I can do this anymore. But there was never that moment where I wanted to quit because I loved it too much.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was the great thing was like, there'd be that Saturday night game, you fuck it up, but then there's a Tuesday night game, a little less pressure, just go in and do it. And you have to be able to bounce back. I think that's the key. It's like not every video is going to be good.
No.
Not everything you do is going to be good.
Yeah.
Not every Instagram post, not every book, not every podcast, not everything I'm saying right now is going to be good, but the next thing better be better.
Absolutely. And I think that's what, like going through those like hard times and kind of questioning yourself, that's when you realize that a job is not only a job, it's actually what you're called to do and what you're passionate about. There's a difference between being like a 9-to-5 kind of thing, and then you realize like, okay, things are not really working really well. And there's a lot of people maybe second guessing like my capability or my skills, but I just don't see myself doing anything else. So I better get good at it, or I just better keep going and like just move forward. So, and that's awesome. And I think it's the same for me, and I think it's the same for you. It's like, yeah, it sucks a lot of the time, but it's worth it at the end. And I think that's very reassuring, especially when it comes to job. Like actually loving what you do makes a huge difference. Like like having a job is not only like it's most of your life, most of your time. You go there, and it's like, and if you hate it, I mean, you can keep going. The money is nice, but it's like you're not investing your time. You're just spending your time making money. But there's a difference between just, spending time and investing time. When you love what you do, I think it comes as an investment. You're investing in yourself as a professional, and it's your goal in life. And that, like, it's part of the best version of yourself. And I think that.
Right. And that's what I've been thinking about it with anything I'm doing. I'm not really thinking about this is what I'm doing. That makes no sense. But what I'm saying is like video production, podcasting, having a relationship, having friendships, being a son, being a brother. None of that shit that I do, I think consciously about this is how I am a son. This is how I am a video cameraman. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I'm trying to get closer to just being me, and the way I do all those things is the same way I just do everything. I just come at it purely as the only way I can.
Yes.
You know, it's impossible to do it all the time.
Yeah,
and you're
of
always
course not.
self-conscious, and the ego gets in the way, and I have to do it better. I have to do this, that. I have to do it the way they want it. But like, really, that's the goal for me, is just to come at everything the same way. Not wearing a mask.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to speak to you the same way I speak to my mom, the same way I speak to Marcio, the same way I speak to a client that I just met. People might say, that's ridiculous. You can't talk to your mom the same way you talk to your girlfriend or or your buddies, but you can in a way.
Yes.
You can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think being like, I call it, and I think about that, just being one Andrea all the time, because I always think it's like, what if I had to bring my mom into my workplace? Would she be shocked of how I act? Or like, even with my group of friends? And then I thought, like, of course that comes with age. I didn't think about that when I was 15. I just wanted to be cool and be with my friends, you know? But after that, it's like, it comes a time when you're trying to improve yourself and actually work on yourself, and I realized it's like, I want to be one Andrea as well. And you can be, of course, there's a time and a place to share different stories.
Sure.
And of course, like, you're not going to go into work and talk about your personal life for 8 hours straight. But there's like, the values are there, you know? It's
Totally.
like, if I had your family, like if you had your family here, your friends here, they will still be like, that's Patrick.
Right.
That is Patrick right there. You're not just a completely different person, because that kind of falls into people pleasing.
People pleasing.
And that's a huge thing, especially, like, I don't know, as a girl like that, it's just like, you know, people pleasing, especially when you're insecure and you just want to be accepted and validation. It's like, you know how you can kind of read people? I don't know, if you're in a conversation,
right,
you have two choices. Like, you probably know what I would like to hear, and you can, you know, say nice things about me, or you can just be yourself in a respectful way, but you can still be yourself.
100%.
We always have that choice. Especially when you're meeting someone or in a workplace, it's like, I'm just going to agree with everything you say, but like, in my head, I'm just like bringing you down and judging you. You know, it's like, you always have that choice. And people pleasing is, I think we all fall into that. I fall into it sometimes. Sure. But it's like, kind of being mindful. It's like, okay, I can still be respectful and polite and respect others, but still being myself and not compromising your values. I think it falls down to that. Know who you are and your values and stick to them, and don't compromise them just because you want to be accepted or because you want to please others.
Yeah, and I think that's something we got to work on every day.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Because there's times, maybe even in this conversation, where you said something and I kind of half registered it, and then I went, you're right. But it's like, I don't know. Maybe you weren't even right. Maybe you were full of shit. Maybe I'm full of shit.
Maybe you listen to this back and you're like, oh my God, poor girl, somebody come help her. I don't know why.
Oh my
sat
God.
down and talked to her.
Ugh.
Yeah, literally.
No.
Maybe you won't even use this, but that's
no,
the
I
thing.
will.
And that's, I think it's you can never get to a point where like, people pleasing is not a thing. No, sometimes we fall into it, and it's okay to know, like, you cannot be the boss everywhere. You know, especially when in a workplace, when you work for someone. Like, even if I know better, you have to know your place.
Yeah.
You have to know your place, but still, when it comes to someone compromising your values and who you are, then you can draw the line. But it comes to everything. If you want to make friends, you can be fake and agree, but they will eventually know the real you. You can only go so far.
You cannot hide it forever.
Especially when they hurt you and you're like, you know what? I think you're crazy and I've been faking it this whole time, but I don't agree with half of the stuff you say. Eventually, that will come to place. I know people change.
Yes.
And I'm not the same person I was when I was 15 or when I was 18, and hopefully in a good way in most areas of my life. And it's good to look back, and I think, like, especially with family, and I don't know if you find this interesting, but sometimes, like, just knowing because it's family, you know, they'll be there.
Yep.
And sometimes we treat family very, very poorly just because you know that they're stuck with you if they want to stay. If not, you're like, well, sorry. And I'm guilty of that sometimes. Like, at home I wasn't very nice, and then you're out there, you're the life of the party, you're like super kind and like helpful, and then at home you're like a nightmare. So it comes with time, and it's learning. Right. We're human beings. We're never going to be perfect, and I don't think we should strive for perfection.
No.
It's just but always willing and wanting to be better, and knowing that you can always make a difference, and there's always work to do. But in a positive way. It's not like, oh my gosh, I suck. I'm never going to get, like I'm never going to be good or perfect. It's like getting slowly there. But that's the beauty of life. I don't know if I love to look back and I'm like, I've come far. You know what?
Yeah.
Like I'm more confident, more patient. I don't judge people as much as I used to before.
Nice.
And I think that's the beauty of life. And it's okay to know that you're always going to have work to do in yourself. But I think it will be a very boring life where we're like, okay, I got to a point where I'm perfect and I don't need anyone and anything. And I know it all. I have nothing to learn. It's like, well, what do I do?
Yeah. Now what? Now what?
You might
as well die because you're not living. You're not living.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to something. You're good for time for a little bit? Yeah. I wanted to go back to, you were talking about you've got some aunts or family members and they're all divorced and they might never get married again. And my parents are the only two out of their siblings that are still married.
Wow.
Or that haven't been divorced at least once.
Okay.
And I know some women that have been through toxic relationships like what you described. And I just wonder, I would hate to say what's the problem here, but is there some common thread among the way men and women are relating these days or ever that we can see a trend here? Or is it a lack of respect? Is it a lack of communication? Or at least what you can speak to? Is there something that comes to mind there?
Well, there's a lot going on. Of course, we have different personalities, and although I wasn't part of every single relationship that they went through, speaking about my personal experience, I think in my generation, there's a lot of unrealistic expectations. Even about when you're meeting someone, to me, it's like you kind of, you're attracted physically to that person first.
Right.
Starts with that. But when and then you click, let's say, oh yeah, we both love photography.
Sure.
And then you kind of become okay, you become you get excited about the idea of that person. But, which is okay, like you're getting to know, but when that comes everything, and if they don't match that idea that you have in your head, then everything goes down and they start making you maybe they don't even know it. Maybe they have unrealistic expectations towards you, and then you're not meeting them, not because you suck, just because you're a different person. But if they don't know it, they will start thinking that you are the problem and you're not good enough, or you're not pretty enough, or you're not smart enough, just because you're not meeting their expectations. And that's something that in my relationship was going on. And I was like, whatever you want me to be, I'll be. Like, just tell me what you want and I'll be, And that's dangerous. Yeah, it's definitely. And I speak for girls, physically, and that's one of being Spanish and being a girl. Like, I don't know if you can, Latinas, let's put that word, Latinas. When people say Latinas, and even me, I know, it's like, oh, fiery, spicy, sexy, whatever, It's like, yeah, and it's fair. I mean, you watch all those music videos with Spanish music, and there's girls, topless girls, and they kind of ask for it. So I see where it's coming from. But
lots of booty shaking.
Yep, lots of those out there. But to me, and then you try to match that expectation, and that's where, as a girl, as a guy, you decide to say, okay, this person thinks I'm not good enough. Clearly, what to do is you kind of cut things off, or you try to meet those expectations, and you keep going. And my mom did that. My mom, she was literally being physically and verbally abused, but she was scared of being alone, and she's like, no, I can be whatever he wants me to be. I'll be, don't worry, I'll be. And she self-value or self-worth was not even a thing in her mindset or anything. So sometimes also you kind of attract what you want to attract, desperate people attract desperate people kind of thing.
Sure.
And sometimes you go into that mindset. If I go into my mom even, and she speaks about this, she was very insecure about her looks. So she's like, oh, he's going to cheat on me. he's gonna see a girl, he's gonna cheat on me, I'm not. And then she started like not wearing makeup. She stopped working out. She was kind of asking for it. It's like eventually it's gonna happen. So why am I even trying to look pretty if I'm not even good enough? And she tells this story. She's like, okay, he's gonna cheat on me eventually. So she stopped. Yeah, she gained a little bit of weight. She stopped doing her hair. She stopped taking care of herself. And she attracted that. Yeah, he cheated on her. I'm not justifying him. I think it was wrong. Absolutely.
Right.
But I saw that she was just like not taking care of herself and waiting for that to happen, because eventually it was going to happen. So in a way, I believe because of a thought or the belief that you have about yourself, you can attract that, those kind of things.
Certainly you can.
And if okay, I'm going to get fired, I'm not good at my job, and then you start
quitting, phoning it in.
Yeah, you start making mistakes, you start thinking, oh, they're going to hate this, I'm not going to even try that hard. And eventually, they'll probably get rid of you. And because whether you like it or not, whether you were aware or not,
right,
you were kind of attracting that to your life. So I think there's like I said, thoughts have power in what you believe in yourself. So sometimes, you attract what you want to attract, whether it's positive or not, but it's all about who you think you are and what you deserve. Okay. And I think that there's a lot there, but there's different reasons, but I think that's one of them.
That's a big part of it, hey? So it's like, you're not seeing the other person in the relationship for who they are. Mm-hmm. And I'm just trying to follow what you said, and you're kind of putting them on a pedestal, or you're building them into something that they're not. And then now you're not even relating to the real person. Yeah. And but there's, what do they say? 50% of marriages end in divorce. It's like there's probably a million reasons, but I wonder how much of it is just the two people they're not being honest with themselves. Mm-hmm. And if you're not being honest with yourself, then how can you bring any kind of honesty to a relationship?
Yeah, exactly. It's like you want something, but at the same time, and I think that can become very toxic in any relationship. It's like, I want you to see my worth and my value, and I want you to love me or like me for who I am. However, I cannot even do that for myself. I don't like myself. There's a lot, and I'm not putting the work, but I want you to tell me and see the good things in me and be that when you have to do it for yourself first. And that goes with everything. My mom, after 17 years of marriage, they're getting a divorce.
Oh, they are?
They're getting divorced, and she's like, it's crazy how 17 years of my life passed by, and I have to deal with a lot of things that I thought I was like, my mom is 45 years old. She's like, I don't have to deal with this anymore. I don't have to, I'm confident, I'm getting old. I don't have to care about if I'm pretty or not, or if I was pretty enough for him. And even looking back at that, she's like, I still wonder why he cheated on me and when he did it and why he did it and what he didn't like about me. But at the same time, I was like, Mom, did you when you found out about it, she's like, honestly, when I found out he was cheating on me, I was kind of like, I saw it coming. It kind of makes sense. And I'm like, to me, it's like, what kind of mindset is that? How can you go? But I did it in a different way.
Sure.
But what you believe in yourself and what you deserve, and that kind of can become true, but you kind of make it happen at the same time. You know what I mean? It's
yes.
It can be in a positive way. Mm-hmm. When you strive to be really good at your job and you finally get the job of your dreams or whatever, or it can be the opposite way where you're like, you're lacking because you don't have any self-confidence. Mm-hmm. And that takes time but it takes a lot to kind of face your fears and your struggles head on and say, this is where I'm at. This is not where I really want to be, but I need to start somewhere, but you can't really, and it sounds cliche, but asking someone to believe in yourself when you really don't, you can clearly see it. And that comes with time, and I think it's a process, but in relationships, I think that can become really toxic. And even when there's when someone cheats on someone, I see it as totally wrong, but at the same time, I knew how insecure my mom was, and I knew how she kind of let herself go.
Right.
And she wasn't trying. So I kind of see both sides. I think he should have just confront her about it, or saying like, you know what, this is not going anywhere, and like ended it and go away, and like date whoever you want to date or be with whoever you want to be.
But he liked the power that he had.
But he liked the power that he had, of course, and my mom let him do it. Like, and like we were talking about it, you and I took the same person back 3 times. And that wasn't on him. He didn't force me to be his girlfriend again. Like, it was my choice, and I was completely aware that it wasn't going to go anywhere, or like that he didn't really see my value, but I let it happen. So even in those stories in relationships, divorce, there's always 2 sides of the story. And there's some, like, you can tell what's fair and not fair, but at the same time, there is, like, when someone gives up on themselves, there has to do a lot of work, whether you can work with it together as a team, or that person needs to be entirely by themselves and get back and then actually be with someone. But I don't think your happiness, like, even if you're together with someone, it's like, you make me happy. That's one of the things that I'm like, no. You're in charge of your own happiness, and if whatever that means, if you want to be happy, you make yourself happy. I'm not in charge of that because I'm your wife, or because I'm your daughter, or because I'm your friend. I want to add to your life, and I want to be there to support you. However, it's up to you to be content with who you are and what your life looks like. But sometimes we fall, it's like, no, like, my significant other makes me happy, and they are supposed to, it's like, and
what happens if they die in a car crash tomorrow? Then what?
Exactly.
I mean, clearly you're not going to be happy, but now you're never going to be happy ever again?
Yeah, and that's what happens, going through, like, divorce and, like, mental health, and you see a lot of people, like, it's like, going down, and I was one of those people, like, there was a lot going on in my life, but I put fully my value on that one relationship, and I completely knew that person really didn't see my value for whatever reason. He wasn't the right person, but I just wanted to be loved, and I'm like, I can convince them. Whatever he wants me to be, I'll be, and I'll be loved, and it'll be great. And I put a lot of pressure on him, actually, because if he wasn't nice to me one day, or if he didn't say you look pretty, or if he didn't say the right things, I would be sad, or I'd be like, oh yeah, I suck, and then he was like, Andrea, I'm sorry, like, I didn't think about that, or I didn't say you're pretty, but you look pretty. It's just like my mind is somewhere else. Or when someone is having a bad day, it has nothing to do with my worth. You're having a bad day and you're really not talking to me. But if I'm putting all my value in this friendship or whatever interaction, I'll be like, make it about me. Oh, he hates me. He doesn't like me. Now he does. What's going on? And that's not fair to you. You're allowed to have bad days. You're allowed to want to be by yourself, especially when you're in a relationship. But if you're putting all your, like, hopes and value into that person, you're always going to make it about you, and it's going to affect you on the inside. So insecurity and people pleasing and just not working on yourself and protecting yourself and taking care of yourself, I think can affect you, of course, but it can affect the people around you. Absolutely.
That's interesting. I had thought about it that way, where, like, if you're insecure, like, and insecure is the right word for it, and it's like, then it's so much easier to just say, well,
blame others.
My happiness relies on him. My worth relies on him or her. Everything I feel about myself it's the worst, because it takes all the responsibility off of you. It's like, well, the relationship makes me happy. This makes me happy. That makes me happy. But you got to be happy inside.
Yes.
But then that puts a hell of a lot of responsibility on the other person. I hadn't really thought about that before, because I hadn't thought about it. It's like, how
can you read their minds?
Right.
Yeah, you have to say the right thing all the time. You have to appreciate me. You have to look. If I did my hair, you have to say the right thing. You have to cook for me today. It's like, and maybe you didn't think about it that day, but all of a sudden there's a huge argument, and I'm like putting it on you. You don't appreciate me. You don't love me. You're like, selfish or whatever. It's like,
he's now doing the work of 2 people. He's going to look after himself, and now he's looking after you.
Yeah. And that's unfair to the other person, but usually people like, oh, he didn't say you, like, looked pretty that day. What a jerk. Whoa, you should let that, which sometimes is the case. If it's a pattern, but it's like knowing that that's just life, and we have bad days and good days, and sometimes you need to take care of yourself in a relationship, and sometimes you need that space, and that space is healthy, and you're doing the right thing. But sometimes if you're insecure, then yeah, that's going to happen and you're not going to see it. You're just going to blame them and make it all about you and play the victim most of the time.
So when you're doing these, when you have these interactions with these girls on Instagram, are you sensing a pattern there where it is that insecurity, where they're putting their value in the man?
Absolutely.
Is there a repetitive, and how much of that is like, well, no, I'll just ask you that. Is like, are you seeing a pattern here in the way these girls are behaving?
Yeah, absolutely. I see the pattern of course, not seeing their value.
Right.
And also the unrealistic expectations of a relationship and how you should feel. You know, you go into it. It's like, oh yeah, people say that marriage is hard, but it's not going to be for me and him because we love each other and we're different. And it's like, no, I do believe I'm not married by any means, but I've been in a relationship for three years, and that was hard. It's a hard work to be with that person like all the time and to
Sure
like
is.
them, and they're like, you know, and especially when you get to know them and you're getting to know them when they're angry, when they're like happy as well, but they're frustrated, and when they're just human. But I've noticed a pattern. It's like, I didn't think it was going to be like that. And also it's like, okay, you see that it's going downhill. He's not treating you well, or she's not treating you well.
Right.
But then it comes when they don't see their self-worth. It's like, but I'm going to fight for him. I'm going to fight for him. This is love.
What is that? Because I know somebody very close to me who they got in this toxic relationship, and my sense of it was this woman thought she was going to save this guy. This guy didn't. He grew up without a father. He made some bad choices. He was not taking responsibility. He didn't really have much going for him. Could have been a good guy. Could have done it. Could have done what he wanted with his life, maybe.
Yeah.
But what is that? Why do women, good women like you, why do they cling to these dudes that are losers, for lack of a better word, who aren't doing shit for themselves? What is that? Just a feminine thing? You're looking at. And
I'll give you this like perspective because I learned this with my psychiatrist.
Okay.
So with my dad, my biological dad, my mom, I was born when my mom was 18 years old.
I was going to say, yeah.
So yeah, almost 19, I guess. And they got married because it was one of those cases. Okay, we have to get married because you're pregnant.
Right.
And they got divorced when I was a year old. So by the time, my mom never talked about my dad. But by the time I was 4 or 5 years old, I was like, where the heck is my dad? Is he dead? Like, my mom never spoke about him. So one day I asked him, like, Mom, where's my dad? And she's like, no, he's alive. He just didn't want to really be a dad. However, if you want to meet him, I was like, I kind of want to meet him.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, I'll try to contact him and see how it goes. She contacted him. He was willing to see me. And by the time I was 7, I met him. And it was a weird concept for me because I knew what a dad was supposed to be, but I never called him dad because he was a stranger too. So my mom never asked for money or anything. She just wanted him to be in my life, but he didn't want to be. So whatever, when I was 7, we started hanging out every weekend. And one day we were supposed to go to the theater. So she's like, okay, my mom was like, I'll drop Andrea off. The door was open at his house. We were knocking on the door. He wasn't coming downstairs. And then she's like, hey, where are you? We're here. And then he yells. He's like, I want you out. Like, I don't want to be a dad. I don't care about Andrea. Just go away. Go away. And then my mom was so angry. And I was 8 at the time. I knew exactly what was going on.
You had to absorb that at 8 years old.
And then I was like, I looked at my mom. And she was like, okay, if you don't come down right now, like, she was just angry. She didn't mean it, but she's like, you'll never see your daughter again. So you better get your act together, come down, and say hi to your daughter. At least say hi to her, and take that back. He said, I meant what I say. Go to hell. I don't care if I ever see her again. And my mom just literally looked at me, and I don't know what, like, clicked. I knew I was being rejected and as a kid, and all I was being was myself and my dad, and I just wanted to love him, basically. And I looked at my mom, and I said, okay, let's go. Like, I don't know what was in me, but I, like, made a drastic change. Like, I stopped, like, hugging my family and saying I love you. I was just too scared. I went, this is messed up. I was just being myself and loving someone. I got rejected by just being me. So I turned into self-protecting mode, and I was like, I'm not going to hug anyone. I'm not going to love anyone. They're going to just leave me. So going back to my stepdad, and then I was with my ex-boyfriend, I was talking to the psychiatrist and then talking about my dad. And then I was like, I don't know, I'm just afraid of going through the same situation with my significant other. They're just going to leave me like my dad. So I don't want to be with my dad in a relationship, if that makes sense. And that's my biggest fear.
Right.
And she said, okay, so you think that your biggest fear is being with someone like your dad, but when in reality, your biggest fear is being your dad to someone.
Whoa.
Giving up on someone. And that's why you let these guys in these cycles, and even my mom included.
Whoa.
It's like, I'll never give up on someone because we're human, and they make mistakes and they'll change eventually. So I'm just not going to give up because they're not perfect and they don't see my value. I will stay there. I won't give up. And that completely changed my mind.
I flipped it.
That was like, that's true. My biggest fear wasn't being with someone like my dad. It was being my dad to someone else. And I think that can be applied to a lot of like different situations in our lives. It's like, I was just afraid of being that. And I'm like, I'm never going to be like that. But in that, like, I took it to the extreme, unhealthy extreme, where like,
right.
Yeah, you can like swear at me, like say that I'm not pretty, cheat on me, whatever you want to do. I will still.
I'm never gonna leave.
I'm never gonna leave you, and I'm here for that. And like, because I'm not like my dad.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, to an extent that's very nice, but you can take it to the extreme in my case, and we can use my story as an example where that was affecting me, and that was definitely not the greatest outlook at my life. And when
right.
she said that, it literally, like, until this day, I'm like, after 20, like that, I was 25 at the time, I was like, whoa, what happened? That is actually true. I don't want to give up on people, and that has happened with my ex-boyfriend, but also with friendships too.
Huh.
And in a work environment, I'm like, okay, I'm being treated like crap, but I'm not gonna give
quit.
up. I'm not gonna quit. I'm just gonna. It's fine. When there is a fine line, and yeah, but like I said, situations in your life can definitely affect you in more than one way, and sometimes we're like, I'm over it. Like, I don't hate my dad. In fact, I now talk to my dad like
really?
like Facebook.
Oh,
like
wow.
He apologized, like, honestly, I think 2 years ago. He's like, you're not even in Venezuela anymore. I know that I'm not really gonna have a relationship with you, but I'm sorry.
Wow.
I sucked. I was just selfish. I didn't want to be a dad. I didn't want to be around your life. There is nothing that I can say to justify myself. I'm just sorry.
Wow. That help at all?
Yeah, that helped. I mean, it was really tough because there's so much that I have to go through. And to me, it was crazy because I thought he asked me, and it was kind of around the same time after my breakup. I think it was 2 months after.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I saw that you have a boyfriend. How is that going?
Yeah.
And to me, Patrick, it wasn't like, thinking about the breakup. It's to tell my dad another man left me.
Oof.
To me, that hit me. And I was honest with him. And of course, he said, you know what? He probably doesn't deserve you. He said all the,
said all the right things 20 years later.
Things, but I'm like, do you even, you don't really know who I am. So you don't really know my worth, or you don't know if I was like the toxic one in the relationship. He's just trying to say the nice things that I want to hear. But to me, that hit me. It's like, yeah, now you know that another man left me, and you know that my mom is divorced now. So there's two. So it goes deep, and until this day, I think about it, and I'm not fully past from that. I don't. When it comes to, and I don't know if you can, I don't know what you think about this, but when there's broken relationships, it's like, did I deserve that? What can you say in a failed relationship? There's always two sides of the story, and you have to own.
You do.
What you did. But it's always sad to look back, absolutely. And to me, it's knowing my worth still. And I'm glad I was honest with my dad. And I know that I hope like he doesn't think like, oh well, that makes sense that like, you know, someone left her. He was probably hopefully not thinking about that, but that's how I viewed myself.
I doubt it.
And that was like really, really tough for me. And even thinking about my stepdad, I'm like, oh, if he knew that another, like, yeah, it's repeating itself, the story. And for me, it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
It's like now it's my grandma, it's her sisters, it's my mom, and now me. I haven't like gotten married, but I have broken relationship. And that happened when my ex-boyfriend broke up with me. Not only that, we were gonna go like literally next week after that to Montreal to finally meet my family.
Right.
After 3 years of dating, and I still went to Montreal, and I had to face my uncle. I had to face my auntie, my grandma, and my mom, saying, "Yeah, my boyfriend was gonna come. However, he left."
Wow.
And it still hits me. Like, of course, I know that it's not all on me, and it had to end the relationship. I'm glad it ended. I know that hopefully he'll change for the best, and I'll change, and I'm not the same person I was in the relationship at all. And I can see that I did a lot of things that weren't healthy.
Right.
But still, it's tough, Patrick. And I don't know, rejection is not a nice thing. And you can, I don't know if you can speak to that. You're a guy. And rejection still hits you probably the same way. It's rejection is just not pleasant in any way. But it's hard. Like, I try not to really, and it's weird. Sometimes when I get negative, like, feedback from a guy, it hits me a bit more than when a girl says it. And that's something I'm like, how can I change that? How can I get over that? And I don't know how long it'll take me. But I don't know if you have any other situation that you've passed by. It can be a father figure. It can be anything that you're like, yeah, I have problems with authority. Some people it's because they didn't have a father figure. Some guys, a lot of like, they have a problem with authority. No, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'll tell you what to do.
Right.
And I see a lot of that for guys. A lot of it has to do with respect and validation. Like, you know, you want to provide for your family, and you want to be, you know, the real man in the room, and you know, and I don't know. I think we have different perspectives, but I'm interested to hear what you think about rejection and how that rejection affects you throughout time and after years.
Yeah, I think with rejection, especially like in a heterosexual relationship, like what you're describing there, it's so deep because it's like as deep as it can be, because it's a person saying that I don't want my genetics to mix with yours.
Yeah.
You don't get to come into my gene pool.
Yeah.
I can find somebody better.
Yes.
I can find somebody stronger, bigger.
Yeah.
You name it. Hairier. Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought too much about it beyond that. I felt that before, for sure, when I was younger. I mean, I'm in a long-term relationship now, but when I was much younger, it was, and you know, in my single days, you approach a girl at the bar and it's a no. And it's like, well, you could go as deep as you want on that or not. And it's best not to.
Yeah.
But it is that. But it's different when you're being rejected. I can only, because I've never experienced this, but within the family.
Yes.
Because that's someone saying, we are genetically linked. Everything says we should band together and stay together, but actually I'm not really interested. You're not. Maybe it's the same. You're inferior to me. I don't need you. But that's what it says to you inside, I would think. Yeah. But really what it is what? It's like, you can tell me this or not, but like your father and your stepfather, they obviously were traumatized by their fathers, perhaps.
Yes.
So that just perpetuates. It's that intergenerational trauma that's well known. But as far as rejection, I mean, what do you do? What do you do?
I mean, it sticks
How
to
soon
you.
Can you put it away? I guess.
Like, I don't think you can, forget about it. It's like you have a car accident, just those things that you will never, forget. But, it's like, how are you letting it affect you? Is it part of your story, or if it's still part of who you are as a person, is shaping you into becoming whatever you're becoming, right? So I think there's a difference. It's like, okay, I see it, it hurts, and I don't like to talk about it. It's not a nice feeling. Look, those memories and flashbacks are not nice, and they'll never be nice. But it's a difference. Is okay. Well, that happened. It made me feel this way, but now I've learned, and now I can see, and I'm in a better place. And it takes time. Like, going back to, I remember that after the breakup, kind of had a few conversations with my ex-boyfriend. After
Those
that.
are always good, aren't they?
And then he said at the end, and I don't know what he was saying. He's like, hey, this was for the best. I'm sorry I had to do it this way, but I couldn't lie to you anymore. And then I was like, I was just shocked. And I said, hey, but I don't know what you didn't like about me. This me not seeing my values still.
Right.
Like, I don't know what you liked about me, but this is like, I'm surprised. Like, tell me why you're breaking up. What made you not care about me anymore? Was it a point? Was it like a specific thing that I did? And he put it this way. He said, Andrea, no, I think, there's definitely things that you can work on, but I do think you will be better, and you'll learn, and you'll grow up, and you're mature, and you'll be the best version of yourself. However, not even the best version of yourself is going to be good enough for me.
Wow.
And that was pretty much the last conversation I had. And that stuck to me. It's not that he said, like, oh, you're going to be like a piece of crap your whole entire life. He's like, no. You're going to be successful. You're going to be great. However, not even at you're the greatest, the best version, that's not going to be good enough for me.
Where does he get off saying that? What right does he have to say that to somebody? Like, what? I guess I'm curious what you did to make somebody so evil. To say something, that's an evil thing to say.
That is, but I mean, I think the problem was there before, because after even 2 weeks of dating, for someone to tell you, actually I was forcing myself to like you, I don't think you're pretty.
Yeah, I might be gay actually, the more I look at you.
Some of my friends were like, Andrea, is he gay?
He might have been. He might have been a self-loathing gay man, you never know.
Exactly, so even those things that I'm like, and I had to, at that point, I'm like, you know what? You're not worth my time. Like, are you crazy?
Right.
Like, that is not fair. Even for me to say about him. If I said that towards, about anyone, really, the problem is me. There is something going on, whether it's pride or whatever it is. It's not okay. And that tells more about yourself than the other person that you're telling that to, actually. So at that point, although that comment was very hurtful to me, was so out of, I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Nobody says that. Nobody says that, and you shouldn't say that.
You shouldn't.
At all.
Even if that's how you feel. Why don't you just say you're not my type?
Exactly. It's like, sorry, I lied to you for a long time. This is over. I'm sorry. Like, even that, what can you do? But to go ahead and say that and a lot of things, I don't know. But I like I said, of course I wasn't perfect. And the relationship, I don't think I was crazy to the point of like doing something very obvious that I'm like, you know what, I screwed up this way. Of course I was insecure about myself sometimes. And it was, for me, was more the physical aspect, just because that was there at the start when he said, sometimes I don't think you're pretty.
Right.
Sometimes, I was insecure in that way. But to the point of saying, you'll never be good enough. I think that speaks more about where he's at in life and his own insecurities and whatever he's facing. I don't know if it's just his age or whatever it is. I'll never get to understand that, and I cannot justify that. I'm just glad he's not longer part of my life.
Right on.
But at the same time, I wish him the best, far away from me. But I cannot just keep my life saying I hope he dies alone.
Can't hold on to that.
No, because that means that I'm not letting go of that situation yet. I wish him the best, but now I'm glad, although I'm still dealing with a lot of rejection and a lot of trauma from that relationship.
Yeah.
I'm glad it ended, and I'm glad he ended it actually for a very awful way to end it, but I'm glad it's over.
Yeah, right on. And you're strong enough to walk away Like there was that moment where he said what he said, and then you okay.
There was that
fine.
moment, and you know, like
that's we're done now.
Yeah, and then you go through the like. I'm like, oh, what if I see him again? Sometimes you keep like that hope in your heart. It's like maybe things will change, you know. And I went through that for the first 6 months. I'm like, oh, I'm angry, but hey, if you want to, you know, talk, I'll go and like see if we can work it out. And I'm like, are you kidding? But now I see it. I'm like, you know what? I don't think we even have to have a conversation about anything. I forgive him. Goodbye. I don't want to see him. If I see him on the street, I'll probably walk the other way. And just stay away and protect myself, and just know my value, know my place, and that person does not deserve a place in my life anymore. Right
on. Andrea, we crossed 2 hours. Can you believe it?
That's, I mean, no, it flew by. For you, it probably felt like 4.
Well, yeah. No, I thought this was great. This is one of the best I've done.
No, but thank you so much, Patrick. I love what you do, and thank you for taking the time not to hear my story, but to hear a lot of stories. And sometimes that, to be honest, this was the highlight of my day. And thank you for that. And just keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for being a friend, a great coworker. And I'm excited to see and hear all the stories that you're going to hear very soon.
Thank you. That's very kind. It's been my pleasure to talk to you and to hear all that and to give you a space to express yourself. Yeah. Let's say people wanted to check you out on Instagram, or is there any public page that you're...
Yeah, my Instagram is Andy Riera. I'll spell that. So ANDIE RIERA, and then my other account is Girls with Feels.
Girls with Feels, and people should really check that out.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, you got it, and I'll share that too. Andrea, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Pat.
Right on. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the North Bank Media Podcast. If you enjoy this conversation, please subscribe on YouTube and give us a like. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe as well and leave a 5-star review.